Call to order the January 14th, 2020 organizational special meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada, absent. Councilwoman Janquith.
Here.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Here.
Councilman McPartlin.
Here.
Supervisor Syed.
Here. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Councilman McPartlin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm now going to open privilege of the floor. Privilege of the floor is now open. If anyone would like to speak, you can approach the lectern, state your name and address for the record.
You did.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. Kevin Walsh, 2843 Whitmire Drive. Just a couple quick things. I'd like to welcome Councilwoman Perez Jaquith to the board. Look forward to having the opportunity to work with you. And I want to mention item number 15 and 16, resolutions number 8 and 9. Number 8 being the reappointments to the planning board. Just want to let you know I support Ms. Shenfield and Ms. Gold being reappointed. They're a great part of the team. Hopefully I'll be reappointed also tonight to the board. We got a good team and we got a great planning and legal department to back us up. So things are going pretty well there. We got a lot of work on our plate. So I look forward to 2020. And also under resolution 9, which is a reappointment of chairman. Hopefully I'll get the board support there. Look forward to continuing my service to the community. So thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Kim.
Oh, just got here on time. Lorene Zabin, 2455 Brookshire Drive. I believe it was a week or so ago that the Niskiuna Co-op Board had a meeting here. On the front page of the Gazette, it said there were 140 people. Now, you know how I feel about occupancy. I think we're in danger if we don't start paying attention when we have either other meetings or events, that this room either has a protective service or it has a counter. There are too many things going on, not only mostly in the nation and in the world, that I think we're kind of closing our eyes to the fact that anything can happen. I was very upset, as you all know, about the night we had, I don't know how many people in here, including many, many children, sitting on the floor. We don't need to have that kind of influence. And we can have it at different times. We can have it on, give people awards on Sunday afternoon. I'm not interested in your time. You voted to be here. So you have to give your time. But we don't have to sit here wondering if we're going to have a problem because of over-occupancy. Now, granted, tonight, I don't think a lot of people know that you have a special meeting. Luckily, I did find out, and I did find out you were going to have privilege of the floor, because my writing a letter to the Gazette has nothing to do with what is in our town and what the board can do to make sure that we have some safety. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember the time in San Francisco when a gunman went into the town hall, as a matter of fact, and killed a couple, that was very scary. It has escalated from those days to the point where anybody who feels like it can come in that front door, which is open. We have no guard, we have no police. And even when we do have the chief and his deputies sitting here, they must have an idea that the room is overcrowded and in danger. I don't know whether those exit doors are open. I should go and try them.
They work.
Does the buzz go off or something? But the fact remains that this is a serious problem. And I do feel and hope that you will have a committee. The police committee would be a good place to start. I think it's important for the safety of anyone who wants to have a meeting here. Now, as long as I'm talking about the co-op, I did write notes, but I'm sorry, I'm a little disorganized tonight. Okay, that was that. The other thing I have heard, it's very hard to pin down rumors, but I do think that some things are worth passing on to the board because I'm sure you don't get to see or hear everything concerning the town. But that the reason we're going through this exercise with a landmark, which is Knott Street and the co-op buildings and all those wonderful little almost town residents that own the liquor store and the Lane's drugstore. And I mean, this is kind of a landmark. And now we're going to close them down anywhere from 4 to 6 months, perhaps longer, with a convoluted plan that the county obviously thinks that their poor little suburb of Niskayuna, who pays the highest taxes, the highest assessment, why pick on us? Is it because we now have a sewer system that is hardly paid for? We bond funds every year to keep that thing going so that waste can be dumped into our sewer plant on Whitmire Drive, which we have no conclusion as to what we're going to do about it. And now we're going to have a road that literally comes from Knott Street, over Knott Street, down Windsor, only because after all these years, we have acquired the property on River Road that the owner, it was a flower, he used to sell flowers there. He had a farm there. And his daughter inherited the property, and now she has, I can't think of the name. The man did work for the town, as a matter of fact, and some old timer would remember it, a little bit older than me. I feel that these are things that may be in planning, but we're going to wake up and we're going to find these huge dump trucks full of stuff coming from wherever, going through our streets to our sewer and water plant. I don't know who's in charge of you are. And I think you really ought to investigate this. I'm very concerned. There must be a way that we could have another entrance or exit to that plant. When I look on the map, I don't know Whitmire, Covington Court. I don't know what's going on there. But we owe our residents first priority. And what we're doing is we're treating them like they come from, I won't mention a country, but we are treating them poorly. And Whitmire Drive is a beautiful, beautiful street. As I recall, we are neighbors, no matter where you live in Niskayuna. We're neighbors. I look out for where I live, but I also like to look out from where we live. There was one other thing that I wanted to say was Happy New Year. We are a new board. We have a new member. We have a new decade, a new year, but we have a lot of old problems. And I think we ought to make a resolution to try to get some of these problems solved. And I'd be happy to be on a winning side of some of these problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor is still open if anyone else would like to speak.
Linda Rizzo, 2229 Fairlawn Parkway, Niskayuna. I have a few things to say this evening, and I'm not going to repeat them, and I'm not going to come to another meeting to state them. But as a resident, as a person who has some expertise, not some, but quite a bit of expertise in the field of education, administration, and public policy development. I have a problem, and I know Ms. Jackwith is here tonight, with someone being on the school board and the town board. I know we can't make, as one of the council person told me, force someone not to do this. No, you can't. People have to do what they feel is right. Or they have to do something that they realize might not be good for the town, even though it's good for one's self-interest. I have a major problem with it for two reasons. First of all, I sat in this audience, I'd say about 3 or 4 months ago, well, I think it was after the school board election. And there were people in this audience sitting around that got up and castigated Denise McGraw for some alleged thing on Facebook. I don't go on Facebook. I don't bother because I'm really not interested in dealing with the nonsense that people spew on there. But it was about allegedly something to do on Facebook or interference in the school board election. There was all this big brouhaha about her, about this, what I called a minuscule issue, basically. Where are these people now? They were saying that being the school district or the school board shouldn't interfere in school district business. It's a separate entity. How dare you do this? And something that was alleged. I didn't read it. I don't even know really what it was about. But my point is, it happened. Now we have a real conflict of interest here. We have someone who has decided to remain on the school board and who is also on the town board. Where are these people now? That's my question. If something on Facebook caused such a brouhaha and broke the division of, the powers shouldn't overlap and all, apparently these people don't care. And apparently they're supporters of Ms. Jackwith. So of course they're not here. But there is a problem with this. And I am just urging, and again, I am sure Ms. Jackwith will stay on the school board because she thinks it's legal. I've stated many times, legal isn't ethical. We know that. And I'm not going to sit here and give you 20 law cases or decisions that would prove that, but I have them if you want to hear them. My point is, I really think as a school town board, see, I'm even getting it confused, that as a town board, you need to go and have a discussion about this. Because I don't think it's fair for one town board member to get ripped apart for just something posted on Facebook saying that school board and school district, town board and school board should never, ever, they're separate. And yet we have this situation. So I hope that somehow this will get resolved. I doubt it will. If an editorial in the Gazette didn't do anything, if letters in the newspaper haven't done anything, and one of mine was in on Saturday, I don't think anything's going to be done. But this isn't about paying it forward. I'm sorry. This is malarkey. This is about wanting to grab the big political balloon. Now, I'm a realist, but that's what it is. And we have another issue, too, that I'm upset about, is that the school board has absolutely no transparency. It doesn't care about transparency. There isn't one town board member up here, including our supervisor, and I don't want you to, I don't expect you to answer, that thought giving Tangora a 5-year contract, a $200,000 plus salary, and no mandate to live, not in Niskayuna necessarily, but in the county was a good idea, especially in face of the low morale in the school district. Now, one school board member told me, oh, well, I met with the superintendent and we met with staff and everybody said they were happy. Give me a break. Really? What teacher is going to come out in front of the superintendent and school board and member and say there's low morale? What teacher or CSEA employee is going to even tell a school board member that, who's going to run back and tell Tangora? Nobody. And now we have rumors, around that there's another school board member that wants to run for office in 2 years. Now, I don't care if he wants to run or she wants to run as a Republican. I don't think it's good if she wants to run as a Democrat, a conservative, a Green Party member, or a communist member. I don't care. I think there should be a moratorium. If you're on the school board, you should at least have to wait a year after you're off to run for office. And they do have this in other communities, that ruling. I think that's important because if you are on the school board and you have an eye for a paid political position, you're going to be making political decisions, not educational decisions. You're going to be making decisions that affect a small group of parents that you think are going to give you votes. You're not going to be making decisions for the majority of the taxpayers, believe me. And this is exactly what is happening. We now have, and you can take this back, Ms. Jackwith, to your school board, who definitely has a lack of transparency. Now I can do that, you see, because she's on the school board. Before, I couldn't do that. Someone would pipe up and say, oh, but Linda, we're a separate entity. Folks, you're no longer a separate entity. They are going to have a $20 million bond issue. Well, some say 20 million. I heard 40 million. No one yet has a handle on the figure. In December of 2020, and I think the date is around December 19th or December 20th, what public body who's interested in transparency, who's interested in voter input, would put a bond issue out in December, close to the holidays? Nobody in their right mind would do this that was interested in transparency and in public input. First of all, you have inclement weather that could knock out thousands of votes. Secondly, you have seniors that don't go out when they see a snowflake. That's going to knock them out. Thirdly, you have people that are running around getting ready for Christmas holidays. They might even forget to vote. I might forget to vote. You're having a major issue at that time. Why? Because you've had the school board has had capital bond issues that have gone out with 800 votes. That's disgusting. And then people come and complain about their taxes. That's a hoot. That's a real hoot because the tax problem is not the town. It's the school board. I get my tax bill. I'm not dancing down to town hall to pay it for the town, but we're getting services from the town. We're all benefiting from it. We had a major snowfall, 20 inches of snow or whatever. We had 18. My street was plowed the next day.
They did a great job.
Yeah, they did a great job. I mean, I have to say, the town, you call up, I thought that we had a water main break, but they were there within 20 minutes to check it to make sure we didn't have it.
Yeah.
What's drowning it is the school board, the taxes, because they pander to a small group of people where the town board has to consider all the taxpayers. And the last thing I'm going to say is there have been issues that people have come before this town board that they disagreed with. You were, ready to put it on a resolution and vote. And when you heard the complaints in the audience, you tabled it. You tabled it. You didn't go ahead with it. When the school board wanted to raise taxes over the cap, letters were in the paper, hundreds of letters against it, nothing. As they would say in Italian, that's what they did to us. Nothing. Nothing. They still went ahead with it. It was unbelievable. And at that time, I told Sue Salvaggio, this isn't going to fly. It's going down. I knew the people that were getting ready with the no votes. They didn't care. Oh, no, you're wrong. It's going to fly. Now we have this bond of $20 million, $30 million, $40 million that we're going to have to eat for all this reconfiguration when we already had a committee way back when Salvaggio was here. I was on that committee. Wasted hours, tons of money. It went nowhere. And I left that committee and I told them, the superintendent, I'm not wasting my time. This is BS. It's going nowheres. And all of a sudden now we're right back to square one. And some of the things they want to do is not much different than what that committee proposed. So my point is, we have this conflict here. And I hope Ms. Jackwitz does stay on here because now I don't have to go to a school board meeting. I can come here and vent like I just did about the stupidity of the school board putting a bond issue up to vote just before Christmas. Now, would you as a town board put a major vote up just before Christmas in December if you really wanted to hear from your residents? I'll let you answer that. But I think if I polled you, maybe nay one, you all would say no. Thank you.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor is still open if anyone else would like to speak.
Yeah, I'm Ann Scributenas, 914 Morgan Avenue, Niskayuna. And I would like to welcome Rosemary Jakewith to the town board. I'm very excited that she is on the board and also a member of the school board. Her term will be ending in 6 months. She is finishing a 3-year term. She served very well our town being on that school board. Many terms, did not raise taxes, held the line. Kids come first. She's not a political activist wanting to further advance, as the former person just said. I'm here to attest that I'm glad there's actually some crossover between the town and the school board and the issues that face both entities. I believe Supervisor Syed started a conversation this spring about facilities. Some collaboration there. I moved here 11 years ago from another state where there was lots of collaboration between the school board and the town and the city. And so when I got here, I actually questioned it when I first moved. Why is everything so separate? Why are they working? It seemed like they were just doing things, and why did we move to this town? Like everybody else, most everybody else, the schools. So yes, we do have to hold the line on taxes. The school taxes are a big part of our taxes, and it is hard for people who no longer have kids in the schools. And unfortunately, that is how schools are funded. They're funded through the state. If we go through rough years where the state cuts our funding, we unfortunately do have to raise taxes or go above, vote to go above a cap. But I do believe the school board has really looked at that and cut. And believe me, my kids have lived through years where things were severely cut. I saw my daughter's, classes go from 20 in a class with an aide to 28 in a class 3 years in a row, cut teachers, cut programming. We had a mental health person going to 5 schools, and now things are recovering, but our infrastructure is old. Our buildings really do need look at. This is the first superintendent that's really had a long-term plan for our town. I actually was happy to see he got a raise because guess what? There's a superintendent shortage in this state and he can go anywhere. And when we look at what we were paying him, I actually, before we even brought up his raise, I was worried he was going to leave because I looked at what other, towns were paying their superintendents and, our schools are top 10 in the whole upstate. And to me, that's worth paying for. We continue to be the top performing school in the Capital District. We're a town that people want to move to, and it's growing. Okay, I was also on that FUAC committee. I was on that committee years ago, and we looked at it, and we had different data then. And that was coming out of, we were saying there was going to be no growth in Niskayuna. We had a severe recession in 2007. Things were on the decline, but guess what? Things are back. We're building, we're having something down there on Aqueduct Road. We got more things coming in. The schools are at capacity. So I'm just here to say, there's another side to everything. And I'm, not only is Miss Jakewith's roles compatible, I actually think she brings an expertise for her past 6 years on the school board. She will be valuable in this role. And it expires in end of June. So when things do come up where there's crossover, hey, what's the school board doing? What's the town doing? I think she'll be invaluable for that communication. And I want to say I'm grateful that she's here. And I just want to speak the other side because I keep seeing things in the paper and hearing people are saying this is a negative and it's not. Okay, let's move forward. Like I think Lorraine said, it's a new year, a new decade, and let's go to work. And thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Don't worry.
Oh,
Oh, really?
I was
I
like,
got
wow,
excited.
Oh, thank you.
Boy, eagle eye. I didn't even
Wow,
see it.
yeah,
It was right in
how
front
did
of
you
me.
Well, then I figured, I'll get it. May I speak again?
yes.
Start by thanking Ray.
Let's not go.
I don't know the name of this lady. I didn't hear her. Can everyone hear me? I have a very loud voice. I intend to be heard. I had made notes the other day, and I forgot a couple things that I think are important because I never know when I'll get back to a meeting. Number one, we have a representative from the town on Metroplex, which is a money-making board. We have a member for the county legislator. As a matter of fact, we have 2 members. Now, it would seem to me that occasionally we might invite them to come and tell them about the county and the town relationship and why we don't see them or hear them unless it's to raise taxes or to come and invade our town with their wishes and not listen to our town's wishes. That's number one. So I would like those representatives to set up some kind of meeting with the board. I mean, do we have a president of the board? I mean, are we just a small town government? And I do want to say in some communities, which I've lived in many of them, have different forms. I don't know whether school boards and town boards share maybe a village community or an inlet someplace, but we're a town and we have state laws that we are expected to live by. Now, the other thing, we had a wonderful night with, I believe is our assistant attorney, deputy attorney, and she was having a state representative from our cable division. Now, at the end of the meeting, there was a discussion about having someone from the Spectrum. And we all in this town have had disagreements with the billing of Spectrum. And I have talked with them on several occasions. I have very basic and standard. I'm tired of repeats. I'm tired of increases, even though they tell me they do announce them. And I'm tired of the fact that we have no alternative other than a direct TV, and most people have it and then cancel it. So I would like the deputy attorney to probably instigated, excuse me,
We're going to have them at the end of the month.
you have scheduled
Yes.
with
It-
Spectrum?
Yes, this has been an ongoing conversation. That meeting that we had where we had the woman from the PSC here, that I had
Right.
set that up, and that was definitely one of the next action items. We've just, between the holidays and everything, as we
Oh.
heard. So yeah,
I'm delighted.
okay.
So the other thing is, there was a huge headline when S&I, Schenectady International, went to the Golub source. Golub doesn't own that meeting, doesn't own that building. Golub rents it. But Galazi, who is one of our top producers of development in Schenectady County, is the grandbaby of them all. They go to Metroplex, they get top dollars. They have tax abatements on materials that they buy, and they have been very, very successful. And they are a priority of Metroplex. Now, we pay for Metroplex, and they have a particular bonding, I don't know whether it's a limit or what it is, but it's in the millions of dollars. And I really think that there must be other developers, and there's another one who developed the Mansion Square out there on Balltown Road, which had, people were against that. It's a horror. It looks terrible. It came back to planning, I don't know how many times, with changes of plans. It sailed through like a ship over in the Cape Cod. Now, so I think we need to start to look at the county and the influences that is causing us to be a minority town when we're the most influential town in the county. And let's see, let me see if I've got all my notes right. Okay, so we're going to try to get some representatives who we elect. I'm not saying that, they're foreigners. They live in town and they represent us, or they live in District 7 for
Great.
but I want somebody from Metroplex. I want to hear what they're doing at there. We're paying some guy $200,000. I think he's the head of the planning board, because Metroplex doesn't have a salary for the director. So that's how we have managed to get this terrific guy, and he's very, very good on economics. So Spectrum, we're going to have at the end of January. We're going to have representatives come, whether you have them at a meeting or a special meeting or an 8:00 meeting in the morning, which I'd love to come to, but it's too early. But I'm telling you, we really need a little more insight. And we also need to watch our occupancy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor is still open if anyone else would like to speak.
I just want to say one more thing, because you
Okay.
probably won't see me for
This is
about
going to be
5 months.
quick.
First of all, there is not a lack of superintendent candidates. I was a central office administrator.
Okay.
I know what I'm talking about. They're out there. Secondly, paying anybody out of our tax dollars $200,000 plus a year and not requiring them to live at least in Schenectady County is a slap in the face of the taxpayers. Thirdly, Niskayuna is a good school district. I've been in many school districts with parents representing them that have kids that have special needs. We have some very good school districts that are equal to Niskayuna. I could name them. North Colony is one. Voorheesville was on the top of the list 4 or 5 years ago. I could go down the list. So, this is not the only game in town. And there are people that come here to look at property and decide they'd rather go there, someplace else that's just as good, because of the property taxes.
Okay.
So I'm only going to say, let's get realistic about this. Fudging this over, saying that, we can't, we have to raise somebody's salary to $200,000 because we live in fear. If he left tomorrow, I wouldn't lose 1 minute's sleep. There'd be somebody else down the road to come in. Thank you. I'll see you maybe in June.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor is still open if anyone else would like to speak. And last call on privilege of the floor. If you would like to speak, do so now. Seeing no one left willing to speak, I'm going to close privilege of the floor. We're going to move on to the public hearing. The clerk, please call the public hearing.
A public hearing on the proposed sewer rent rates for Consolidated Sewer District Number 6.
Thank you. The public hearing is now open. If anyone would like to speak during the public hearing, you can approach the lectern, state your name and address for the record.
Leslie Gold, 1919 Pawtucket Avenue. One of my big issues has been that some of the rates we have are not fair. We charge people sewage use for water that has gone to their lawns and their pools, and I still don't think that's fair. And that should be ameliorated somehow. But even bigger is, I think when you're looking at raising a bunch of fees and you're presenting the budget, you should note all of that at that time. I really want that transparency added to the town government. All the rates should be included, all the proposed rates should be included with the budget presentation, and the public should have the time to comment before it's in the budget. And gee, if we don't do it, we have an unbalanced budget, and we're either going to have to cut services or take out of reserve funds that we shouldn't, whatever. So I want a better approach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public hearing is still open if you would like to speak.
Come on.
And last call on the public hearing, if anyone would like to speak. Okay, Lorraine will.
I just went through the preliminary budget because the sewer rates on the preliminary budget are cheaper than what you're proposing. You're going up, what, $10 more? Now, in the wisdom of the board that didn't pass our budget, our town budget, we go back to the preliminary budget. So now you're raising the rate. This makes no sense to me. We have a budget and we have a sewer rate. And now you're having a public hearing, taking the $67 or whatever to 70 something or other. I didn't have time to check the figure. But how can you do that? If we're operating under the preliminary budget, we're changing a rate within 3 weeks of the first of the year. It doesn't really, I think maybe we ought to think about the salaries we're paying. And I think we ought to think about the number of people we're paying, because we're certainly not getting our money's worth. I'm one person in my home, and the flat rate that you charge is appalling. I would have to be flushing the toilets and using the water and showering 4 times a day to get that amount of usage in my sewer and water rate. And yet you've set a minimum that is very high for a lot of the seniors. And I really think you should withhold thinking about that rate. And if you've decided that your salary schedule and your budget that doesn't comply with our preliminary budget now, and we should have that for the year except for emergencies. And I don't think that this is an emergency. I don't think you've done one thing for the people on Whitmire. You haven't done anything but raise taxes. And guess what? We have more darn water breaks and more pipes and more rotten things going on. And I think we're all getting a little bit sick of it. I'm against the raise.
Thank you. The public hearing is still open if you would like to speak.
Gail King, I live at 1633 Balltown Road. I have an office for permanent hair removal at 2215 Knott Street. Because of my concern about what's happening with Knott Street and seeing construction for 6 months to a year, we all know it may be more than that. It's going to be within a foot of our front doors and probably 10 feet down to our basements. I'm taking measures to move my office, and it's Resolution 19, resolution calling for a public hearing for a special use permit for a mixed-use building at 2220 Crescent Road. And that's where I hope to move my office. And I hope that's compatible with the way you are all thinking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I drove by there. I learned of this from the town planner the other morning, and I drove by over there. It looks very nice there, where you want to go. Yeah.
The public hearing is still open if you would like to speak. And final call on the public hearing. If you would like to speak, do so now. Seeing no one left willing to speak, I'm going to close the public hearing. We're going to move into our resolutions. We're going to begin with Resolution 2019-287, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution adopting the salary schedule for 2020.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Thank you. I'm going to make a motion to amend the salary schedule by supplanting the schedule that was tabled with a schedule that was circulated, I believe it was this afternoon, correct? Or this morning. And that schedule is the one that is attached here too. So on that amendment, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
So the amendment is actually what's in the agenda,
Correct. Yep,
not
this
what
is
we
the amendment.
discussed at the meeting last week. Is
Right.
that what is that in short what you're doing?
In essence, by tabling the resolution, it then reappears, so it's still 2019-287. So if we were to vote on that resolution as it would have been the salary schedule that was previously circulated at the December meeting.
Okay, so what are and not what we discussed last Wednesday?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah, that's
Are there differences there that you would like to highlight for us?
between the December meeting circulated salary schedule and the current
Right,
that is attached here too?
right. That really just, this new updated, which is really the old, is really just the 2%.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, I see the point that you're trying to bring up. Yes. We agreed to, at the special finance meeting, that what would be included in this salary schedule was steps, grades and steps, as agreed to, on the supervisory and non-supervisory salary schedule, as well as 2% COLAs.
Mhm.
Nothing in addition.
Okay. And we will have a further conversation
Yes.
about additional items. I know
Yes.
Councilman Delarada was not here, so I just wanted to. Okay,
Yes, and
great.
thank you for asking that question. And to your point, you're right. There's not been a change between last meeting, last Wednesday, and this schedule in terms of anything above and beyond steps and COLAs.
2%. Okay. Thank you very much.
Except for the changes that were circulated this morning, right?
Correct.
A handful of minor changes. And I'd like to make a suggestion about the remaining items on that salary schedule. Perhaps the supervisor and the chair of each individual committee could meet with their individual committee to go over those additional items and make a recommendation back to the full board with respect to those items, which, if any, should be considered.
Okay.
We had a conversation about this at finance. We were going to.
Today?
Yes, we were
Okay.
going to try to tackle it then and then get back to everyone.
Okay.
So the supervisor and I are going to meet on it and get back to everybody.
Thank you. So on the motion as amended, we do have a second by Councilwoman Jakewith. So on the amendment, is there any further discussion before I have the clerk call the roll on the amendment? Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll on the amendment?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Abstain?
Supervisor Syed.
Yes. And now on the motion as amended, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Wait a second.
We have
I don't think we're doing the right thing, right?
original motion.
Just do one motion.
No, because we introduced, nope. Will the clerk please call the roll on the motion as amended?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Abstain?
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 1 abstention and 4 yeses.
Okay, motion passes. Next resolution, 2020-1, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to fix the sewer rates for Consolidated Sewer District Number 6.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jakewith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 yeses.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-2, sponsored by Councilwoman McGraw. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the supervisor to enter into a master license agreement with Verizon for deployment of small wireless facilities in the town's right-of-way.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second?
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 yeses.
Thank you. And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-3, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution establishing an architectural review board.
Thank you. I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-4, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution adopting a fund balance policy.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Give that to Councilman McPartlin. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes, just beforehand, I'd like to say that I think this is a very good start. We do need a fund balance policy, especially in light of what has occurred the past couple of years. I know in privilege of the floor, there is a lot of talk about the preliminary budget and what is going on with that. And essentially, we are at least $761,000 over budget in that preliminary budget. That number might actually be a little bit more than $1 million. So there are going to be quite a bit of holes to fill. This policy will not address that. This policy will only address this type of fund balance spending in future years. So we won't be able to spend $761,000 or plus out of our fund balance because it will be against this policy. Obviously, this is not sustainable. There's a tax cap. We can't make up years of over budgeting with a 6 or 8% tax increase anymore. We can only raise taxes 2 to 4%. This unit hasn't raised taxes at all in the past 4 years. And that may be catching up with us now because we are really over budgeted. So this policy is a good starting point. We can amend it and tweak it as the years go on. We probably will have to do that. But in light of all that, I will certainly vote in favor. Yes.
Thank you.
I'd also like to make a comment about this. So I know the board had been looking at this for some time. We had a special finance committee meeting the other day, and we all really worked very collaboratively and came together and talked about the importance of this. And I was very, pleased about how we did that, how we came together and we discussed this and, came to a resolution. As Councilman Delarada says, it may need some tweaking in the moving forward, but this is a step in the right direction. It also enables us, because of this fund balance policy and the ability now to create special reserve accounts under said fund balance policy, we'll be able to, as we're doing in this instance this year, moving away from bonding, because we'll actually be able to allocate reserves for items we should be paying for out of the budget. So we started out with I think a $2.3 million reserve list, and that's now currently down to 1.9. So again, I'll move in the right direction, and I look forward to continuing to work together on behalf of the town residents to do the right thing. Thank you. And I vote yay.
Councilwoman
Thank you.
Jakewith. Yes.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Just a few additional comments that this was a collaborative effort with everyone on the board and the supervisor. You know that we had looked at many fund balance policies before, and it took time to get one that we could all agree on and one that would work for our town. I want to thank Paul Sylvester for his work on this, and there was a lot of research that went into it. And this is what, happens when we work collaboratively on the board. And as Councilman Delarada said, it's a first step in ensuring our financial stability here at the town. So for those reasons, I vote yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-5, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution adopting a modified investment policy.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to say also, we spoke about this at the Finance Committee. And again, this is another, this is an existing policy. It's been updated. And again, we discussed making it part of the code in an effort to be, transparent and accountable. And again, it was a good collaborative discussion.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jakewith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-6, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing a person to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jakewith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
I just want to thank everyone that's on this list here for their service to the town. A lot of the committees that we have in the town, these are volunteer positions, and these people put in a lot of time. So I want to thank them for serving. And aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-7, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing the chair to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I just want to thank Fred Goodman. He's done an outstanding job as the chairman of this committee. He is a true statesman. He is so interested in every issue that goes on in town. He brings such a thoughtful demeanor to the board, and I am very pleased that he is willing to serve again for this upcoming year.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
I also want to thank Fred Goodman, having served on this board with him. He's very, very good at serving as the chairman of our zoning board, and we're very, very lucky to have him. So thank you for serving again.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jakewith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-8, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing a person to the Planning Board and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I just want to say one of my greatest accomplishments of the last couple of years was convincing Leslie Gold to come back to town service. She adds so much, and she's always so thoughtful, well-prepared, always reading all the materials, doing the extra work, doing the homework that's required. I know Daisy is the same way, and it's a very good board, and a lot has been asked of it over the last few years. This town is changing, it is growing, and the volume that is going through that committee right now has really asked so much of all of you, especially the chairman, and I just thank all of you for your willingness to continue to serve.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
I'd also like to thank all these members for serving on these committees. Again, this volunteer work or a very, very small stipend, and they do an excellent job, and our town could not operate without them.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Thank you for your service. Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-9, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing the chair of the Planning Board and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second,
Any discussion?
thank you, Kevin, for serving again. Great job. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? I would like to say of the Planning Board and Zoning Commission, I think your Monday meeting went how long? Up until almost midnight? Yeah. Yeah, and you do this
Wilkin,
on
how
the
long did
regular.
it go?
So just to build on what everyone has said, we really do thank you for what you do and the amount of time and effort that you put into what you do.
And the amount of years that. he's
And the
done it.
amount of years, yes, you are correct. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-10, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing a person to the Ethics Board.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second,
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I just want to thank Mrs. Laflamme and Mrs. Kaiser for their willingness to continue to serve on the Ethics Board. I think when they were approached a couple of years ago by the previous supervisor and asked, they would have never dreamed that this would have been so time-consuming, such a focus of such intense interest. But they have really done a wonderful job. They bring very diverse backgrounds. They are exceedingly well-skilled to be there, and we are better for them. So I'm very grateful to them for being willing to serve for another term.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-11, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing the chair of the Ethics Board.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Everything I said about those previous two women, I could say about Matt Cutler and then some. It has been an incredibly busy, difficult few years for him. We see what goes on every day. We see what's gone on in our own community. He's been a leader in every way, shape, and form, and he is a moral authority, and he is very well suited to serve as the Ethics Board Chair of our community, and we are very honored that he is willing to do it again.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-12, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing persons to the Tree Council.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I just want to thank these two folks for their willingness to serve. And then as we're moving through all of these, in the future, if we could get folks' resumes, we used to get their resumes. We're doing some new people, and I don't have resumes for them. So in the packets, whoever's doing the packets these days, if we could get at least for the, I mean, obviously, I don't need Paul Sebesta's resume, but for the new people that we did earlier, if we could get their resumes in the packet, I think people want to know who these folks are. They're not just like, somebody we bumped into in the parking lot. They're all very well qualified to serve in these positions. Thank you. And thank you, Paul and Amanda, for being willing to serve.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-13, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing persons to the Complete Street Committee.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. We'll give that to Councilwoman Jacquith. Is there any discussion?
As I always say when we talk about this list, I'm thrilled to see this list of group of people. This was a committee that was very active for years in town. I still call it Safe Routes. And then we reconstituted it a few years ago. It is one of the things I am most proud of was bringing it back. The support that we got from the department, from the folks at Highway, Ray Smith, his predecessor, Frank Gavin, really helped bring this back and make it very strong. And these new names in the whole group, I think they really just become more and more important in our town, and I'm thrilled to see them all.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Getting on these committees is a very good way to get involved in your community and to shape and form it. We encourage all the residents. We have a great diversity of our residents on these committees. There are always openings for them, so we encourage everybody to speak with Mrs. Robertson and other department heads about anything that you're interested in, because, again, it is a great way to be involved and to shape the policies of your community. And I want to thank everybody that has been involved.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-14, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing persons to the Conservation Advisory Council and designating the chair.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolutions, 2020-15, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing the town attorney and deputy town attorney.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'm going to make a motion to amend this resolution, and the amendment that I am proposing is the paragraph that begins resolved and ends with at a salary of $52,000. That will read $51,000, and that's to match it to the salary schedule that we previously passed. Everything else will stay the same. So on that motion to amend, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion to amend? Okay, seeing none on the motion to amend, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes on the amendment.
And on the motion as amended, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And the motion as amended passes. Next resolution, 2020-16, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing the town comptroller.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquist.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-17, sponsored by Councilwoman Jakewith. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing the town superintendent of highways.
Thank you. I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquist.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-18, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing clerical support for the receiver of taxes.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. And I'm going to motion to amend this one as well. If you'll all have patience with me. The amendment on this resolution will add another name and address, and this was just an oversight, so we forgot someone. So Diane, tell me if I'm getting her name wrong or her address wrong, but it should read another name, Jacqueline Gallo, and her address is 1441 Balltown Road. Okay. So on that amendment, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the amendment?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquist.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And on the motion as amended, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquist.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
Motion passes. Next resolution, 2020-19, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the supervisor and deputy supervisor to transact certain town business.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquist.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-20, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution designating the banks and trust companies to be a depository of funds.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thanks. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquist.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-21, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution designating the official newspaper.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquist.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-22, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution approving the bond for the town officials and employees.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquist.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-23, sponsored by Councilman McPartlin. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing town firefighters to act as town fire inspectors.
Thank you. I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquist.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-24, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution establishing the mile reimbursement rates for employees.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquist.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
5 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-25, sponsored by Councilwoman Jakewith. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to employ additional employees and independent contractors in the Office of Community Programs.
Thank you. Can I get a second? I will second. I'm going to make a motion to amend the amendment next to William Niezgoda. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. His hourly rate, $17.3828. Is that correct? Okay. And then we also have Ryan James, the last line where it says 1650. That should also be 17.3828. And on that amendment, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the amendment?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And on the motion as amended, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
Motion as amended carries. Next resolution, 2020-26, sponsored by Councilwoman Jakewith. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing, subject to permissive referendum, the issuance of $400,000 bond of the town of Niskuna, Schenectady County, New York, to pay the cost of the reconstruction and resurfacing of various roads throughout and in and for said town.
Thank you. I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-27, sponsored by Councilwoman Jakewith. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing, subject to permissive referendum, the issuance of $464,500 bond of the town of Niskuna, Schenectady County, New York, to pay the cost of the purchase of equipment for maintenance purposes for the highway department for said town.
Thank you. I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-28, sponsored by Councilwoman Jakewith. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing, subject to permissive referendum, the issuance of $63,000 bonds of the town of Niskuna, Schenectady County, New York, to pay the cost of the purchase of a mini excavator for said town.
Thank you. I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-29, sponsored by Councilwoman McGraw. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution calling for a public hearing on the proposed increase and improvements of the facilities of Consolidated Water District Number 1 in the town of Niskuna, Schenectady County, New York.
Thank you. I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman Janquith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Lastly, we have our appointments. I'm going to read those out. Appointments by the supervisor. Deputy Supervisor Stan Faminsky, Confidential Secretary Brian Backus. Appointments by the Receiver of Taxes. Deputy Receiver of Taxes Lois Moschino. Appointments by the Town Clerk. Deputy Town Clerk, Deputy Registrar Michelle Mazurik. Deputy Town Clerk 2, Michelle Carroll. I'm now going to make a motion to adjourn. If I could have a second on that motion.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signified by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're now adjourning our special meeting. If you would like to say for our agenda meeting, you are welcome to do so. Otherwise, we will see you later in January for a regular town board meeting. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
Hey, how are you? What is this, dear?
It's a participation government. We all go to.
What'd you think?
Okay.
I went to it. National scale and also the local scale.
Okay.
I was going to, I didn't. No, I didn't return. No, I returned it to sender. I was going to mention to you, this project is, that's it. I never said at the next meeting. And he's the one who wants to. Myself. Call me because I mean. No, I would never, ever. I was furious. No. But I know, but I was furious that they sent it to send it. They could have put my address on it. So it wasn't me. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
I'm sorry, you didn't need to break that was. Actually, I have. Can we do 7? Can we start with 5 and do 5 through 13 first? Because I really have to go. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't intend for that to be that at all. I know you, I know. We're going to start with you because I have to go. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to call to order the January 14th, 2020 Town Board Agenda Meeting. We're going to begin with Matt Yetto at agenda number 5. Agenda item number 5.
My leaves.
I have on my list number 4 is ours as
Oh.
well.
Yes,
Okay, that works.
No,
Reconciliation.
4 is Lori. It's the grant program. You're 5.
Must
Just
change-
start with,
it must have changed it since when it was mailed
okay.
out.
Maybe, yeah.
Here, Matt, you want to
Yeah, I'll
take mine?
Oh, thanks, Paul.
Sorry about that.
Right, Alexis highlighted it for you.
Matt's first.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, number 5 then. It's a resolution to approve the reconciliation for the corporate and residential utility billing for the first half of 2019. We have all the numbers in. Chris and Kathy have gone over the numbers and checked it. We're ready to go with the reconciliation. Number 6 is a resolution to authorize a change order for the contract for the design services from Prime AE, the engineering company that's designing the Mohawk Road water main replacement. We're expanding the scope of the project to include 1,000 feet of water main on Shannon Boulevard and a portion underneath Route 7. We'll make a better project, and the change order is $19,600. That covers the additional surveying and the additional design work. 7 is a resolution to authorize the purchase of parts from Seawart Equipment for use on our sewer lift stations. We have one brand that we primarily use for our larger sewer lift stations. We go through them every year, tear the pumps apart, buy new parts, replace them. Some of the pumps are 20 years old, but the insides get replaced. As we're working, we take the parts, replace them. So I don't know exactly how much it's going to be. So we every year ask for up to a certain amount so that we don't have to wait an entire month because
So you have it on the shelf, basically.
we have it on the shelf, but we don't know what we need to replace until we tear it apart, but they can't be down for an extended period of time.
Yep.
That's up to $19,500. 8 is a resolution to contract with county waste for hauling the recyclables and the debris and garbage from our transfer station. Josh Hawley from our office has looked at the option of going to a contracted service rather than doing it in-house as we are now. And it actually is cheaper to have someone come in and haul for us. And it greatly reduces the amount of wear and tear on our roll-off truck, which we also use for the sludge removal at the sewer plant. Nine is a resolution authorizing a change order for a contract with Midstate Industries. They did the roof project at the water treatment plant. During the work, they came across issues with skylights, so they had to modify the project. So there's an additional $2,800 that we have to authorize to complete the project. The original contract amount was $30,000. 10 is a resolution to hire or to retain an independent contractor for use at our water treatment plant. Alan Schwartz is retiring at the end of this month. He has expressed interest to come back and to work on weekends to help spread out the on-call rotation for the existing operators. We used to do this years ago with a gentleman from, I believe he was from Stillwater. All the operators are down at the plant are happy with this. He'll maintain his license and he'll be able to come in on Saturday and Sunday every 4 weeks. And it's actually cheaper for the town to do it this way than it is to hire an additional person. But I did mention that Alan is retiring. So item 12, I'm sorry, item 11 is a resolution to appoint Josh Walter to the position of senior water plant operator. That's Alan's current title. Josh has been working at the water plant for over a year. We have another retirement, which is coming, I would think, within 2 months. So I need to get Josh in there to pick up as much as he can from the senior operators. Uh, 12 is a resolution to change the fees at the transfer station. This covers only the electronic waste. Our current rates for taking TVs and electronic debris that we use e-waste to dispose of isn't covering the cost. E-waste has recently increased their costs. So this is just a change in our fees for electronic waste to cover our costs so that we're not losing money on the operation. And 13 is a resolution to authorize payment for repairs of our sludge dryer. We had a contractor come in and do a full evaluation of it. Their analysis is that it can be repaired and that many more years can be taken from that machine. And it's the amount of money that we would spend repairing it would be made up in less than 2 years in the savings that we have for hauling the wet sludge versus the dry sludge. So their contract is $136,000, of which we have some money budgeted already from hauling costs, and then there's some talk of bonded money. No, actually, I think we removed the bonded money.
Yeah.
We have money in other lines.
Yeah,
which
Paul said
was
that the
saved.
money was
Yeah.
there.
What's the hauling been costing us in the absence of this equipment?
With a normal year, we would spend about $10,000 for hauling or less. In the last couple of years, it's been close to $100,000. The wetter sludge, we cannot dispose of it at the ideal location, which is the Johnstown's Gloversville sewer plant, where they give us a very cheap rate. They take the dried sludge, mix it with their sludge, and dispose of it. We have to go to either Albany landfill with the wet sludge or to the Fulton County landfill. which they charge a much greater tipping fee. And we could go from 2 to 3 trucks a week to 1 a month.
So you're using personnel, so you're saving personnel and wear and tear
On the vehicle, yes. And the gas that we're producing at the at the sewer treatment plant will be used to dry the sludge. So it would be savings on energy as well.
What's the time frame for them to get the dryer
They,
up and running?
as soon as 2 to 3 weeks, they can be here. So they have to procure the parts, manufacture some parts. They have the original drawings for the dryer, and they're going to manufacture the replacement parts that they need, and then they'll come in about 2 weeks of work and they'll be done.
Great.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night. We will go back up to the top with item number 1, and I believe that is Paul Sebesta.
Number 1, a resolution modifying the employee handbook. I believe Alexis has emailed some proposed changes, and I circulated some today. It needs some more work. Honestly, there's a couple sections that still are incomplete, and I guess any input or feedback that you'd like to provide would be, the earlier the better, would be helpful. So we don't go off in the wrong direction if that's the case. But a lot of it is housekeeping and swapping out of newer policies, but
Who else is looking at this? So the department heads also looking at this?
department heads looked at it about September. I made a request, and we had a couple, some input from a few department heads, and they're going to be incorporated in here for discussion too. Yes. There wasn't a lot of response, but there was some.
And it's my understanding that once all of the changes are compiled, that we'll circulate it back out to department
Yeah,
heads
It
again.
needs to be, one
Looked at
one
another.
cohesive document
Yeah.
that we can sort through.
Okay.
Because right now it's bits and pieces, honestly. But I do want to keep it moving. I know, ideally this would be done in December, effective January 1st, like the salary schedule. But, this is where we are, and we'll just do the best. Okay. Number 2 is a resolution authorizing a renewal contract for workers' compensation with the Comp Alliance. We've been with them now. This is the beginning of our 3rd year. We were self-insured for probably upwards of 15 years, and it's worked out real well when we had received some training through them and other benefits. So, and we've had some fairly significant claims that I'm glad are not our responsibility, although they're managing them quite well and trying to keep our experience down. So, because, it all comes back to you eventually to a certain degree. But we're happy with them. And that's approximately $265,000. And it's, as you all know, but I'll just say for the record that we've been able to stop putting money away in the budget toward the reserve, which is how we were funding our claims up till from the past over a decade. Putting from each operating fund, we put money in the reserves and then appropriate it for we had stop loss insurance claims and other assessments that we have to pay for. So this is actually less expensive than the combined cost we have experienced up to recently. So it's not only potential liability that we don't have to be exposed to, it's a cost savings also.
Good.
Number 3, resolutions. I don't know.
Not you.
This-
Okay. You just
um,
had 2 tonight?
Well,
Not bad.
there is, I think I was going to cover 25 5.
Okay.
25, resolution authorizing payment to a member of the Niskuna Police Department for unused leave in recognition of unpaid military leave taken in 2019. It was basically a oversight that we were not informed. We had a standing order, let's put it that way, that this individual was not to be paid when they're a military leave, which is a state law, allows them a certain amount of military leave. When that was exhausted, they elected to go on unpaid leave, but there was a miscalculation and there was actually other leave balances that could have been used to be to keep them in a full pay status. And so it was just an error on the employee's part, and this would resolve that problem.
Okay.
That's it.
I
Thank
got
you.
one more question for you
Sure.
while you're here. Your new time clock system, what's the status with that?
That's a good question. They are in my office. The software is installed on the server. That happened December 26th. There's progress. I just asked Janet last week to get an update on when our training was to be scheduled, because you have to build. There's a lot of files that you have to build and policies that have to be established. So that's where we're at. We have them physically in place, but with this, and the software's loaded, but there is part of the $26,000 was, training and implementation. It's a considerable part because there's rules you have to set up.
So is it realistically to say that we're going to be able to deploy this the first quarter?
I'd say the second quarter. They said 60 to 90. Well, that's possible. It's possible. I just don't like to overcommit though.
Okay.
But I'd say with the second quarter, I'm pushing though, honestly. I don't want to, now that we have them, we bought the clocks, we're paying interest on the debt.
We spent
know.
money on it.
Yeah,
It's not doing any
I
good if
can't-
it's not up and running.
I can't, hold others to that standard and not abide by it myself. But anyway, yeah, we're making progress. It's slow.
Okay.
They are very busy. Tyler Technologies has a lot of business apparently. It's very difficult to schedule this time with them. It's their issue more than ours. We can't seem to, and it's not cheap. It's not like, they're volunteering. So as soon as I can get them here, that's the plan.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next up, Lori Peretti.
Okay, number 3 is a resolution establishing the daily rental rate for our town pavilions. I have a very long list of people that are very anxious to get their pavilions rented for the summer. So that's why I like to get it done in January. It's $185 for the day, which is a bargain. So it's sun up to sundown. And so that's why I want to get it on the books.
Are we changing those rates?
No, last year what we did is we consolidated them. They were all over the board, were holiday rates and daily rate or weekend rates, and we made it a flat 185 to no detriment last year. So we're happy, and I didn't think it needed to go up. It's fair.
Great.
And number 4 is a resolution authorizing the submission of an application for the Schenectady County Initiative Program grant. This SIP grant is what helps subsidize our concerts out on the green. The application just came out the other day. We'll be submitting it by the end of the month and hopefully hearing something May or June. We've been successful up until now, so.
How much does that provide for it?
About $1,500. One year we had a banner year of $1,750, but then it's basically went back down to $1,500 after that.
How many concerts do we try to schedule?
About 10, and it's all weather permitting. So some years we have it, some years we've been down to 6 or 7.
And those vary, what we pay for those performers, does that vary?
Yes, we try to keep it, Julie does her best to plead poverty. So we get a lot of bargains. There are a few that maybe have a 7-piece band that we pay a little bit more for, but it hovers around $400 or $500 a concert. Yeah.
Great.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll skip down to 14, and then it's Laura Robertson.
Number 14 is a resolution adopting the town of Niskuna's ADA transition plan. We had a public hearing for it. We put it out on the website. If anybody has any comments, please still send them to me. We are in need of comments, but it's ready to be adopted. I know CDTC reached out to me recently and said, have you adopted it yet? So it's time. So we have that on for resolution. Number 15 is a resolution appointing persons to the Architectural Review Board. Thank you very much for passing that resolution tonight. I know the planning board is really looking forward to having the ability to refer projects to the Architectural Review Board. We had gauged interest in it quite a few months ago. I have 3 people who have sent resumes and letters. I've reached back out to them to see if they're still interested to being appointed, and then if anybody knows anybody else, put them on there to get that going. Number 16 is a resolution retaining a grant writer. We talked about this in finance. Hopefully we can get one that we've worked with before and is very helpful and, has brought a lot of money to the Schenectady County. And if not, we do have a couple other options. So hopefully we'll have a name at the end of the month. I am tagging on 17, a resolution establishing a records advisory board. We have this actually already in our code 40-5. It consists of town supervisor, town attorney, records coordinator, department head, and just a couple other people. And so I don't think that's a huge heavy lift. And I was talking to Alexis and she was speaking with Michelle about it. Having that board will allow us to have a little more leverage for grants and hopefully help us get that grant to do the records in the basement. Yes? Yes. So that's exciting if you guys don't mind doing that. 18, a resolution retaining professional engineering services on an as-needed basis for 2020. We call that our TDE, Town Designated Engineers. So we have to have the rates every year so that we can cross-check whatever invoices they're submitting with what we approve for their finances. I have about 6 of them so far. Hopefully I'll have like our usual, I think we have about 10. And so I'll have that ready by the end of the month as well. Do you have any questions on that one? Okay. And then 19 is a resolution calling for a public hearing and a special use permit for mixed-use building on 2220 Crescent Road. We talked about this at my committee meeting. This is a mixed-use building, currently pre-existing non-conforming multifamily property on Crescent Ave. Ms. King and her husband have made an application to move a small cosmetology electrology business into the first floor and add some parking. There's a lot of need for parking in that plaza. I think she's willing to, double check the stormwater and do some buffering, and it would basically be taking the property from non-conforming into something that is conforming in the zone. Special use permit is kind of a lengthy process. This is a very low intensity use, so we're just trying to move it forward to be sensitive to her timeline. So I would ask that we call for a public hearing in the end of January for February.
We'll get a recommendation from planning and zoning, right?
So the planning board's public hearing is the 27th. Your meeting would be the 28th.
Okay.
So you'll have the recommendation. I can email it to you guys ahead of time, but it would just be a call for a public hearing at that point, and there would still be a month where we can take input and listen to the public hearing in February. But and I'll ask again in February. We can see how the planning board public hearing goes, but just because of the timeline for the town board meetings, if we can do a public hearing with potential action on that date, that would be my recommendation as well in February.
Seemed like there was good conversation at Conservation Advisory Council as well in the issue.
Yeah. It's not like building a brand new building. I think the special use permit process is really meant to be, we've said a harder look, but generally tends to, you want that scrutiny level when you're taking virgin land and putting something new on it. This is a pre-existing non-conforming building that we're just moving a business in. So if we can be sensitive to schedules, we try. Number 20 is a resolution authorizing a Barton Judas change order for Aqueduct Park Engineering. I brought this up at Finance. I'm hopeful that we had internal discussions about doing all of these projects and uniting them for the Aqueduct Road Park. This is a change order that would authorize them helping us go out to bid, doing the construction inspections, and finalizing the drawings for all the phases that we were looking at. So it's about $30,000.
Great.
And I think that's all I have. Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
Did anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Laura. Move on to the chief.
So number 21 is a resolution for a part-time clerk in the police department. Last month, we had John Serrata join us as one of the part-time clerks for Discovery. This will be the second part-time clerk. It's actually Jim Walsh, who will be retiring this year from the police department, and he'll be coming back in the clerk position so that we can cover the 5-day work week with 2 part-timers. Just on a side note, Jim's going to be piped out tomorrow here at Town Hall at 3 o'clock. It's kind of a nice ceremony, so you're all certainly invited to attend. Number 22, resolution authorizing the purchasing and upfitting of 3 vehicles for use by the police department. This is the cycle we've been on for about the last 5 years. Every 3 years, our vehicles turn over. They run about 110 to 120,000 miles in the 3-year period. So they go out of warranty, and after 3 years, we get a much better auction price for them. So this will be replacing 2 patrol vehicles and another one of our administrative vehicles. And we have them out to mini bid currently. So by the end of the month, we'll have a firm number for that. Any questions? Am I addressing number 23 as well, or that's just?
Yeah.
Okay, so number
Okay.
23, a call for a public hearing to install no parking signs on Schwab Drive. We have some considerable parking problems there, typically with the employees from the Aqueduct Animal Hospital, and it makes it very difficult for traffic, particularly buses, to come in and out of Schwab Drive. So we're looking to put in 2 signs to keep a further distance to park from the corner, so it can help to allow traffic in and out of Schwab Drive.
Has there been any accidents or close calls around that area? I've gotten some complaints about, and I don't know if it's the people coming out of Schwab or it's combined with the busy times of the veterinarian hospital, but have we had any uptick in calls there?
I don't know that we've had any accidents specific to the parking issue. It's certainly a very busy road, Ball Town, so I think we've had accidents at that intersection that have to do with people egressing from Schwab. But specific to the parking, I know it just makes it very difficult if a bus is pulling in or pulling out, or even cars making the turn, that if there's a car on Schwab that now has to fit in between cars, it just limits the width of the road.
So those employees and presumably would have to park.
Just further down the road.
Oh, okay. They wouldn't have to necessarily park in the Aqueduct parking lot, because then you'd have problems, I think, that would flow from that.
Yeah, I mean, it would certainly be preferable
Right.
if they did, but it's certainly legal to park on the
Okay.
roadway, and it'll just be further down the road, so that'll leave the entranceway wider for
Thank you.
egress. Anything else?
Nope.
I think that's it for me.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Next, we have item 24, peddling and soliciting. Who wants to tackle peddling and soliciting? Michelle.
You're all pointing
Okay,
at each other.
you're up. I know. It's like
Michelle,
not it.
Alexis, neither one.
This resolution would call for a public hearing on a proposed local law to amend Chapter 151 entitled Peddling and Soliciting, regards to licensing fees and revoking licenses of peddlers if need be.
And you've looked over the changes that the legal department's come up with
Yeah, I
to
have.
the law,
The only
yes.
thing I think we didn't decide on any the fees yet, changes in the fees.
What are peddlers? Is that like solicitation?
Solicitation, the door to door. People who
Okay.
go door to door.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, last but not least, Ray Smith.
You got the short straw, all right?
Really? First time, right? Okay. Number 26, a resolution authorizing the renewal of the contract with Schenectady County for mowing and maintenance on Grand Boulevard and the triangles at Union and Route 7. I reached out to the county. They're preparing the contract, and you should have it by the time of the town board meeting for you to authorize.
What's that been in the past in terms of value of the contract?
I think it's like 4,600 and 2,100 or somewhere in that ballpark. I don't have the particular numbers with me right now. It's more of a benefit to the residents. They're the gateways to our town. And, you know, it makes coming into the town, probably, we maintain it on a weekly basis, where the county may do it once a month or as needed. So it's just proven to be a little nicer for our residents. Okay?
Great. Thank you. Okay, are there any other additions? Okay. I'm going to motion to adjourn, if I could have a second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signified by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Everybody have a wonderful evening. We'll see you back here at the end of the month.
The